industrial bleach, crystals, chemical dyes, pine needles, bone broth. All of these are examples of products and protocols promoted on Telegram channels as a way to provide someone with a vaccine detox or to cure autism. Few places on Earth are immune to the explosion of anti-vax conspiracy theories and health disinformation fueled by the COVID-19 pandemic. But in countries like Brazil, where the disinformation flowed from the very top of government, the problem is even more acute, and some people are exploiting the fear of others to make money. I'm Gemma Ware, and in this episode of The Conversation Weekly, we hear about new research out of Brazil into how peddlers of disinformation on social media also sell fake cures. And we ask why some people are looking for solutions to their health problems in these toxic chemicals and unproven protocols. You're listening to The Conversation Weekly, the world explained by experts. I'm joined to start this episode by Daniel Steiser, editor at The Conversation in Brazil, based in Rio de Janeiro. Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Gemma. Nice talking with you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. So, Daniel, every country in the world battles disinformation and conspiracy theories in its own way and in its own local context. But it seems particularly bad in Brazil. So tell me what's going on right now.
Well, Gemma, I think there are two things we have to highlight here. One of them is conspiracy theories grew a lot during the Jair Bolsonaro presidency between 2019 and 2022. He didn't believe in vaccines, and all these people started to spread disinformation about vaccines. And he postponed buying the vaccines, which were already available in other countries. And the result of this was that Brazil lost a lot of people due to the lack of vaccinations for COVID-19. And the other thing is the role the big techs are playing in this.
And are conspiracy theories now mainstream in Brazil in a way that you've never seen them before?
Yeah, I think conspiracy theories grew a lot, especially because of social media, I think. Because it has always existed, of course, but it grew in a way that we never saw it before. Brazilians are very keen to use social media. For example, WhatsApp is the most used tool in Brazil. And even Mark Zuckerberg said last year that we send 4 times more audio messages than any other country in the world.
You're talking a lot.
Yeah, a country where people don't write very well, so they rather send audio messages. And because of this, they speak all kinds of idiot things and record and send through their groups. So there is even a character which was created, the Tia do Zap. It is like the Zap aunt. It's an old person who is not very literate and spreads disinformation with their family. So people say, oh, this is very much like a Tia do Zap, because it's this kind of people which are very common that spread all kinds of things that they cannot believe or they don't even check. This is the point. So this information runs deeply here.
And one of the biggest streams of disinformation is around vaccines, particularly since COVID and the pandemic. What's the real world impact of that vaccine hesitancy in Brazil in terms of the rates of vaccination?
Yeah, the problem is that the rates were dropping consistently. Brazil was known for a very high standard of public vaccinations. We have this public program which is free. So what we saw during Bolsonaro years was a very strong drop in the number of vaccinations in Brazil. Before 2015, we had something like 97% of the whole population vaccinated. And by 2020, this number dropped to 75%. Now on 2024-25, we are probably on about 60%. The good news is that, especially since 2023, when President Lula got to power, these figures are getting better slowly. The government is doing massive campaigns in order to vaccinate people again. But it's a long and difficult fight.
And at the conversation in Brazil, I know you've been publishing a number of stories about disinformation and the dynamics of it in the country. And we should say that disinformation is the purposeful spreading of false information. And you came across a researcher called Ergon Kugler, who's been doing some really interesting work on this, and particularly in terms of how it spreads on social media. Can you tell us about Ergon and what struck you about his particular research?
Yes, we are publishing a lot of stories about disinformation, and we have been in touch very closely with IBICT, which is an institute for science and technology. And one of the researchers we got in touch with was Ergon Kugler. He's a very young, very bright guy, and he works in a group there called Disinfopop about conspiracy theories. Ergon studied something like 1,000 groups from Telegram, and they found out that it's not only a matter of ideology. People spread disinformation and conspiracy theories because they profit from it. There are a lot of guys who are professionally spreading disinformation because they have something to sell to cure what they're saying. And we found it very interesting. It's showing that there is a market behind that. It's not only ideological, but also profitable business.
Thank you, Daniel, for putting us in touch with Ergon. We wanted to find out more about that research, so I've had a conversation with him. Thanks very much for coming on and explaining it all to us.
Thank you very much, Gemma.
In 2018, ahead of presidential elections, Brazil was swirling with political disinformation. Ergon Kugler was alarmed.
It was really hard because it was the first experience that we have in large scale trying to understand how to deal with the disinformation.
Jair Bolsonaro won that election, and during his presidency, disinformation spread out from electoral politics.
Topics like climate change, like anti-vax movement. We had information about gender, trying to stereotype people who is transgender, for example, or who have another identity.
Ergon is based at the Brazilian Institute of Information on Science and Technology, known as IBICT, and he was one of a group of researchers who felt they had to do something.
It started to become like a national effort, like a national network between researchers trying to understand the phenomenon of disinformation.
Ergon began to map the spread of disinformation on the social media and messaging platform Telegram. He started by focusing on around 20 public Telegram groups in Brazil, and then used these to find other groups across Latin America and the Caribbean.
Now we have more than 1,000 of them. We have more than 5 million users in those communities in the entire Latin America, but half of them, 2.5 million users in Brazil. It's like 1% of our populations.
These groups were focused on a range of different topics, from anti-vax disinformation to climate change skepticism to the New World Order. Ergon and his team at IBIC's Disinfopop Observatory developed a tool to scrape posts from these public Telegram groups from 2015 up to today.
We have 61 million pieces of content today coming from all the countries from Latin America and the Caribbean. So we can see, for example, the same piece of content here in Brazil and the same piece of content in Colombia and Chile, in Argentina.
Many of these groups were active before the pandemic, but COVID-19 added fuel to the fire. Ergon's dataset shows a 290% increase in anti-vax conspiracy narratives during the pandemic. He's also published analysis showing a 15,000% increase in autism-related disinformation since the pandemic in Latin America and the Caribbean.
We have a lot of contents promising, we can cure your autism. We can have solutions to deal with your autism.
Ergon began to look more closely at the fake cures promoted within these Telegram groups.
They have a lot of fake health products and treatments. So one example is the Miracle Mineral Solution, MMS. It's the most common because it's chlorine dioxide, which is basically an industrial bleach. So they claim those products are like a detox. They can use to take out microchips and take out all the bad things that vaccines have put in our body.
Deworming drugs such as ivermectin and colloidal gold, which is a suspended solution containing nanoparticles of gold, are also promoted as ways to detox somebody from vaccines.
The most important point is that they spread the feeling of fear and safety, suggesting that parasites, for example, could cause disease like diabetes, and then they offer a so-called miracle cures, and they monetize all of those products.
The analysis of these groups also identified 150 different false cures being promoted for autism, including what Ergun calls absurd methods such as ozone therapy. He says those selling these products exploit the desperation of families for profit, putting lives at risk in the process.
Admins from those communities post ads, testimonials, and videos that make people believe in that product. They use emotional language, fear, and fake science to convince people every time.
The Brazilian government has begun to clamp down on the sale of some of these off-label fake cures, particularly chlorine dioxide.
With this chlorine dioxide, we have an official pronouncement from the national government that it's not allowed here in Brazil. We cannot use chlorine dioxide to prevent any kind of disease because chlorine dioxide is only used on chemical production, on industry.
In April 2024, Brazil's Ministry of Health notified 10 online platforms to stop selling chlorine dioxide as a miracle cure for autism or as a way to inactivate previous vaccines. But that hasn't stopped these chemicals being pushed in YouTube videos, on Instagram and on Telegram. Also for sale in these Telegram groups are fake vaccine passports for people who don't want to vaccinate themselves or their children, either against COVID-19 or other diseases.
They have falsified documents and then sell it with the fake official verified content from the national government.
These passports can be requested by some employers or schools in some states.
So it's really bad because we are talking about people here in Brazil who could not have had the vaccines, but they are using the fake passports to get inside a lot of places. And it's really bad, Gemma.
Some of the Telegram channels Ergun analysed are named after popular figures who promote alternative and unproven therapies.
One of them, who is really famous, he has a medicine background, but the most part of them, they are just like so-called therapists or even miracle therapists or vibrational therapists with another approaches like quantum physics.
These groups contain both posts from the so-called doctor alongside testimonials from people who tried a particular product or protocol.
We have content from people, for example, who say, I was saved by chlorine dioxide. I have no more cancer because I have implemented the deworming protocols. My child here see the image. Even animals, because they use chlorine dioxide, for example, in animals, trying to take out some disease on the eyes, for example. That's it, Gemma.
Wow. That sounds very dangerous to me.
Yeah.
And what happens if someone tries to sell a product? Is the price named or is that done in a different group? How does that transaction work?
In some groups, we have the admins just posting, we have a discount here. This product is X% off. But in other cases, I believe some communities that was already identified by police efforts in Brazil, we have some kinds of communities that they don't say the price, open it in the group, but they say, if you want, call me in the inbox, call me in the private message, and I can send to you the entire information.
Because of this, it's almost impossible to know how much money is being made by those who sell these fake cures.
It's really hard to understand how much we're talking about because it's so diffused.
Ergun also admits that it's impossible to know how many people click through to buy from any links posted in these groups and who these people are and what their motivations are. What's clearer is how those trying to make money from these fake cures try and recruit new targets across a range of other conspiracy theory and disinformation groups on Telegram. Using his dataset, Ergon and his colleagues are now looking forensically at the links between these different disinformation groups. Groups that can ostensibly be about very different topics can end up becoming funnels, taking people into anti-vax communities, where there will be marketed fake cures and off-label medication. Take, for example, so-called red pill communities. These are named after the scene in the 1999 film The Matrix, in which Neo, the protagonist, is offered a red pill to learn the truth about his situation, or a blue pill to stay ignorant of the illusion at the heart of the Matrix. Today, the red pill lens on the world has been adopted by anti-feminist and alt-right groups in the manosphere.
So we are controlled by the feminists, by the LGBT movement, the woke agenda. And if you want to go out, you have to take the red pill.
Ergon says these red pill groups are being used to spread other types of conspiracy theories.
They claim that vaccines make men more feminine and women more masculine. This kind of narrative is used to introduce anti-vax ideas in different communities, for example, connecting them with the identity of gender or even a fear of the feminism. They use the relation between a lot of fears based on conservative movements to talk about anti-vax.
Groups discussing climate change skepticism also act as another funnel to promote anti-vax cures. One gateway might be around a discussion of the conspiracy theory of chemtrails from aeroplanes.
They say that would be, for example, a kind of chemical experiment that change your DNA, that change your composition as a human. And then, based on that, COVID would be made by that. Based on that, cancer would be made by that. Based on that, autism would be made by that. And based on that, they sell more off-label medicines and off-label approaches and protocols because they change the language between each kind of groups.
Every week, Michelle Grattan offers you a ringside seat to the latest in Australian politics with interviews and insights from political insiders. On the Conversations Politics with Michelle Grattan podcast, we cut through the spin and get to the substance with independent analysis of the issues that really matter. Stay informed, search and follow Politics with Michelle Grattan wherever you get your podcasts.
After speaking with Ergon, I wanted to know more about what is actually driving people in Brazil to seek out fake cures. And so I reached out to Igor Sacramento, a researcher at Brazil's Oswaldo Cruz Foundation who studies health disinformation in Brazil. Igor is currently in the middle of a major research project funded by Brazil's Ministry of Health, looking at the different ways health disinformation manifests itself in different parts of Brazil. He told me about some of the themes that are emerging so far.
The users of the public system health believe more in religion, the pastor, and that's a problem because the pastor saying, don't vaccine, ask to God for a cure.
He and his team are interviewing people as they have vaccinations for COVID or flu, or take their children for their routine childhood vaccinations. He says that some people are telling him that they believe information they read on Telegram or WhatsApp more than what they're told by health workers.
That's, for me, was very shocking. Why you are here if you don't believe in this? Oh, I'm here because in my job I have to vaccinate. I'm here because my wife asked me. So it was like more a power relation thing more than voluntary.
Igor says that this level of vaccine hesitancy in Brazil is a relatively new phenomenon.
You have a very strong culture of immunization. It was like a ritual. I remember when I was a child to go to squares and there is people with costumes, like a huge parade. Now, as the people say they don't see the disease anymore, they don't want to vaccinate, or they fear the vaccine more than they fear the disease. That's a huge change.
In a way, that's kind of tantamount to the success of vaccination, isn't it? Because
Yes.
people have been healthier. They haven't had to live with disease. So
Yeah.
Therefore, they're not as scared of the illness itself and the disease, and they're willing to take the risk not to vaccinate themselves or their children. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think it's exactly like that. As they don't see the illness, the disease anymore, they thought they don't have to vaccinate the children. That's a false argument. They don't see because the people are vaccinated. And it's a problem because a lot of people are not vaccinating the children anymore and buying certificates from these doctors that, no, I don't need to vaccinate my child because my child has autism.
Why do you think people in Brazil are looking for answers to their medical questions in conspiracy theories, particularly around vaccines?
I think the big change was on Bolsonaro government because it was anti-vaccine president. And the people saw the most important person in Brazil, our president, he doesn't believe in that. So that was very terrible for public health.
Under Bolsonaro's far-right administration, vaccinating yourself or your child became a political act, aligned with the far left.
If you vaccinated, you are communist. If you use mask, it's another sign that you are communist. But the polarization in Brazil is so strong that to vaccinate your children, you are communist. So the people don't see vaccination more as collective right, but individual choice. That's the big change.
Igor also believes that vaccine hesitancy is linked to an increased political emphasis on the individual.
People are just thinking about, I have to choose what is better to my life, not the state, not a doctor, not a health worker.
Igor's research is also uncovering the role that a few prominent doctors have in spreading health disinformation online. When I asked Igor why these people are spreading health disinformation, he said he thinks they see it as an opportunity.
A financial opportunity to get more viewers, to get more subscribers, to get more people, to get more money. It's also ideological because they believe they have the autonomy to prescribe whatever they want because they are doctors. So that's a very big problem because they use the authority of being a doctor to tell the people, don't vaccinate. Use my medicine that I make on my lab and sell.
Igor plans to do more research to study these doctors and their networks who may be spreading disinformation. It's tempting to think of all this disinformation as a purely online phenomenon. But in his travels to vaccination clinics across Brazil, Igor has witnessed people standing outside on the street, selling so-called vaccine detox products.
I saw the people telling, don't vaccinate your child. If you vaccinate, I have here a detox vaccination. The detox I see a lot, and the detox of 5G I see a lot, because there is a conspiracy theory, there is a chip on the vaccine. And so the people buy that detox 5G. And I saw the passport also.
This wasn't a one-off incident. He saw it in the towns of Porto Alegre, in Salvador, and in Brasilia.
It's like a religion. It's like the people talking about the Bible. It's the same. Don't vaccinate. If you vaccinate, you're gonna suffer a lot. It's like a discourse of apocalypse.
He was pleased to see that these people selling vaccine detoxes were ignored by those actually getting vaccines, but he was still startled by it.
I was very concerned about that because I thought it will be online only, and now it's not just online, it's in the real life.
For Igor, such disinformation poses a real threat to Brazil's public health.
The reappearance of illness and disease like yellow fever in Brazil. I'm very concerned about that when the people don't vaccinate anymore.
In March this year, the Pan American Health Organization issued an alert about the rise in yellow fever cases in the region, with so far 81 cases in Brazil, resulting in 31 deaths.
And another reason is that people don't believe in science anymore and believe in these quick solutions, in these solutions on emotions, based on the trust of the people I met online group. And also it's dangerous because you don't know. There is no agency, there is no regulations about these products.
Still, Igor remains hopeful. In his travels around Brazil, he meets lots of people who want to speak up and fight back against disinformation. He recounted the story of a 15-year-old girl who'd come up to him at a vaccination clinic. Her father had spat on her because she was going to get vaccinated.
And she was crying and told me, help me to help my father. And I was very emotional. And so now is my goal. My major goal is not just public articles. My major goal is help people like this teenager.
Oh wow, that's a powerful story, Igor. This research is so important, so thank you for sharing what you're doing with us. We really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's it for this episode of The Conversation Weekly. We'll put links to further reading on research by both Ergon Kugler and Igor Sacramento in our show notes, plus the link to an article that Ergon wrote for The Conversation in Portuguese about his interactive dataset of Telegram disinformation groups. This episode was written and produced by me, Gemma Ware, with help from Mend Marawani. Mixing and sound design is by Eloise Stevens, and our theme music is by Nita Saal. If you'd like to get in touch, do email us directly at podcast@theconversation.com, and you can sign up for The Conversation's free daily newsletter by clicking on the link in our show notes. The Conversation is a non-profit news outlet dedicated to sharing the work of academic experts to help you make better decisions. If you like what we do, please support us at donate.theconversation.com. And please rate and review the podcast wherever you follow us. Thanks for listening.